Have you ever wondered why some people seem to have complete control over their life, while others just drift through each day, hoping things will somehow get better? It's not luck. It's not talent. It's what they do before the world even wakes up. There's something most people don't realize. Your life doesn't change in a year. It doesn't even change in a month. It changes the moment you decide to do something different every single morning. But here's the truth. Most people are sleepwalking through life. They wake up already behind. They hit snooze. They grab their phone. They scroll. And before they've even taken their first deep breath, they've already given the world control of their mind. Let that sink in the first 10 minutes of your day. Decide how the next 10 hours unfold. Not by magic, but by design, by your design. You see, the human brain is most vulnerable right after waking up. In that small window of silence, before the noise of the world crashes in, your subconscious is wide open. What you feed it in that moment shapes your mindset, your energy, your emotions, and your entire life. But most people don't even think about this. They just repeat the same pattern day after day, and they wonder why nothing ever changes. If you're tired of that cycle, if you've had enough of waking up tired, unfocused, unmotivated, then this might be the most important video you watch this year. Because if you stay with this until the end, you're going to walk away with one simple habit, one powerful shift that you can start tomorrow morning. A shift that has the potential to reshape your future from the inside out. But there's a catch. You have to do it. Not just once, not just when you feel like it, but every single morning. Because real change doesn't come from what you hope to do. It comes from what you repeat. And here's the truth no one tells you. You don't need 100 changes to change your life. You just need one thing, one decision, one habit, done every day with intention and purpose. Psychology has proven this. Your brain is a pattern-seeking machine. It doesn't care if the pattern is good or bad. It just repeats what you show it. So if your morning routine is full of stress, distraction, and laziness, your brain learns to expect that. It builds your whole day around it. But when you start your morning with power, purpose, and clarity, your brain adapts to that too. It begins to operate on a new level. This isn't motivation fluff. It's science. It's psychology. And more importantly, it's truth. But let's be honest. Change is uncomfortable, especially in the morning, because that's when you're most tempted to stay the same, to stay warm, stay lazy, stay lost in your comfort. But that's the trap. That's where average is born. You weren't made for average. You weren't built to coast through life. You have more in you. You know it. You felt it. That voice in your head telling you that you're meant for more. That voice gets louder when the world is quiet, and the world is never more quiet than it is at 5 or 6 a.m. You want clarity? Wake up early. You want power? Command your morning. You want change? Stop giving your energy to chaos the moment you open your eyes. This video is going to show you exactly what to do. Not 10 things, not a checklist, just one thing. One thing that, if you commit to it every single morning, can shift your mindset, reset your energy, and give you the edge that 99% of people never have. So here's the deal. Watch this until the end, and you'll get the answer. The one habit that can transform your mornings, and through them, your entire life. If you take this seriously, it will become a weapon, a ritual, a fire that you build inside yourself every morning to burn through the excuses, the distractions, and the doubts. You don't need a better life. You need a better morning. Because the truth is this, your future doesn't start next year. It starts when you wake up tomorrow. And how you choose to spend the first 10 minutes might just be the reason you become who you were always meant to be. Stay with this. And by the end, you'll know exactly what to do. There's something sacred about the early hours. Before the noise, before the distractions, before the world demands a piece of you. This is the space where change begins. This is where your power lives, hidden in plain sight. Most people underestimate the morning. They treat it like just another part of the day. But the truth is, how you begin sets the tone for everything else. From your thoughts to your energy, from your mood to your decisions. In the first hour after waking up, your mind is like soft clay. It's still forming. It's open. It's listening. And whatever you place in it, whether it's fear, focus, doubt, or discipline, that's what it builds your day on. That's what it multiplies. Psychologists call this the priming effect. Your brain takes early signals and uses them to predict and shape your behavior for the rest of the day. So if the first thing you do is complain, hesitate, or drown in distraction, you've already given away your power. You've already set yourself up for chaos. But if you begin with purpose, if you plant just one strong seed of intention in that quiet space, you take control. And that's the key. Control. Most people feel lost in life because they've never learned to control their mornings. They let the outside world dictate their energy. They let stress walk through the door before they've even stood up. They react instead of create. But mornings weren't meant for reaction. They were made for preparation, for direction, for power. Imagine a soldier walking into battle without a plan, without focus, without strength. That's how most people walk into their day. They wonder why they feel behind, why their goals feel distant, why nothing ever seems to change. But the answer is simple. They've never built a foundation, and your morning is the foundation, not for one day, but for your entire life. Because what you do in the morning doesn't just change your schedule. It changes you. It teaches you discipline. It teaches you presence. It teaches you to choose your thoughts before the world chooses them for you. Think about it. The moment you wake up, you are faced with two paths. One leads to growth, the other to routine. One demands effort. The other offers comfort. One moves you forward. The other keeps you still. And you choose the path, not once a year, not once a month, but every single morning. It's not a one-time decision. It's a daily commitment, a silent promise to yourself. I will not waste this day. And here's the truth most people avoid. If you don't rise with intention, you fall into autopilot. And autopilot never leads you anywhere new. It keeps you where you've always been. But you weren't born to stay the same. You weren't made to repeat. You were made to rise, to evolve, to break cycles. And that rise starts at dawn, not because the sunrise is magical, but because it's yours. It's the only time the world isn't pulling at you. It's the only time you can hear your own voice clearly. No noise, no opinions. Just you and your future staring each other in the face. That's not just time. That's an opportunity. A moment that most ignore. But the few who grab it, lead, they succeed. They build, they grow. And not because they had more chances, but because they learned the secret. The morning isn't a routine, it's a weapon. Used wisely, it sharpens you. Used carelessly, it dulls you. And here's what's even more powerful. You don't need hours. You don't need a complex plan. You just need one focused decision, one meaningful action, one honest moment with yourself before the world gets in the way. You see, it's never about how much time you have. It's about what you do with the silence. It's about what you choose in that quiet moment when nobody's watching. Because that's where the real you is born. Not the version shaped by pressure, not the one buried under fear, but the one that's been waiting, the one that's ready. And that version of you, that powerful, focused, unstoppable version, is built in the morning, not someday, not eventually, but today. So when you wake up tomorrow, don't just start your day, command it. Don't just open your eyes, open your purpose. Because the moment you stop letting the world write your story, and you start writing your own script in the morning silence, that's the moment life begins to change. Not because of what happens around you, but because of what's happening inside you. And it all starts with what you do. Before the sun rises, every person wakes up with a chance to move, to grow, to rise beyond yesterday. But most never take it. They stay stuck, not because they want to, but because they've accepted something far more dangerous than failure. They've accepted comfort. Comfort is the invisible chain. It feels safe, it feels familiar. But it holds you back more than any fear ever could. People don't stay stuck because they're not capable. They stay stuck because they've made peace with being almost alive. Waking up just enough to function, but never enough to transform. They do just enough to survive, but never enough to feel alive. And the scary part? They think that's normal. It's not. What's normal is progress. What's natural is growth. What's human is the hunger to become more. But somewhere along the way, people trade that hunger for habits. Habits that numb. Habits that distract. Habits that drain purpose from their mornings and replace it with repetition. The truth is, most people don't even realize they're stuck. They call it routine. They call it real life. But deep down they feel it. That quiet dissatisfaction. That silent question, is this it? They go to bed with dreams and wake up with excuses. They want change, but they don't want discomfort. They want success, but they don't want sacrifice. They want to feel different, but they keep doing the exact same things. And nothing changes. Because nothing changes until you do. The mind is built to protect you, to keep you safe. But safe doesn't mean fulfilled. Safe doesn't mean happy. Safe doesn't mean free. What most people call a safe life is actually a silent prison. Same thoughts, same emotions, same habits. Every day becomes a copy of the one before it. And the brain is smart. It builds pathways based on what you repeat. It's not judging your habits. It's reinforcing them. So when you start your day with doubt, with delay, with distraction, your mind learns to expect that. It sets that as the standard, and once the standard is set low, the rest of your life follows. That's how people get stuck, not because they don't want better, but because they've trained their mind to believe this is enough. But let's be honest, deep inside you know it's not. There's a voice in you that still believes, still pushes, still whispers that you're capable of more. But that voice gets buried under noise, under comfort, under habits that no longer serve you. Most people silence that voice. They ignore it because it challenges them, because it forces them to look at what they've been avoiding. But you can't grow by avoiding. You grow by facing. You grow by admitting that what you've been doing isn't working, that the way you start your day is holding you back, that the comfort zone you live in is costing you your potential. And that realization? It's not weakness, it's power. Because once you see the pattern, you can break it. But most never get there. They wait for the right time. They wait for motivation. They wait for the perfect plan. And while they wait, life moves on. Opportunities pass. Energy fades. The dream starts to die quietly, not because they weren't good enough, but because they refuse to start. They believe the lie that it's too late, too hard, too far away. But nothing is further than the life you want but refuse to chase. Getting unstuck doesn't require perfection. It doesn't require waking up with all the answers. It only requires one thing, a decision to stop living the same morning over and over again. A decision to challenge your first thoughts. A decision to no longer let yesterday decide today. Because every single day, you're creating your future, with your choices, with your focus, with your habits. And if you're not intentional about it, you'll wake up one day and realize you've built a life you never wanted. That's the truth nobody wants to admit. People don't fall into bad lives, they build them, one small choice at a time. The same way, you can build a powerful one that feels alive, one that's guided by clarity, not chaos. But it starts by waking up with intention, not just routine. You don't need to fix everything at once. You just need to stop pretending you're fine where you are. Because you're not here to settle. You're here to shift. You're not here to repeat. You're here to rise. And the moment you stop accepting less, you start becoming more. No more waiting. No more excuses. No more pretending this version of life is enough. Because it's not about where you are. It's about what you're willing to do about it. Starting tomorrow morning. There's a moment in life when everything can change. Not because the world changes, but because you do. And it's not some dramatic event. It's not some huge breakthrough. It's something much smaller, but far more powerful. A quiet shift inside you. A decision. One decision that says, I'm done living like this. One decision that says, I don't care how slow it takes, I'm moving forward. One decision that says, I will not let comfort steal my future. That's the real turning point. Not when you finally reach your goal, but when you finally stop lying to yourself. When you stop calling fear logic and laziness rest. When you stop blaming the world and start taking responsibility for every action. The truth is, you don't need a new year. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need more motivation. You need a moment of honesty, a moment where you tell yourself the truth, that the way you've been living is not aligned with the life you want. That's the spark. That's where the shift begins. Because transformation doesn't happen in loud moments. It happens in the silence, when nobody's watching, when no one's clapping, when it's just you and your next decision. People wait for something big to wake them up, a crisis, a breakdown. But you don't have to hit rock bottom to rise. You can rise because you choose to. You can decide right now that you're done settling, done delaying, done dragging your potential through another wasted morning. And the best part? You don't need to flip your whole life upside down. You don't need to become a different person overnight. You just need to take one small step, a step so simple, so clear, that your brain can't argue with it. One small habit, one focused action, done with intention every single day. That's how real change works, not in a wave, in a whisper, not all at once, but one strong move at a time. The brain loves small wins. It doesn't care how big your dream is, it cares how consistent you are. Because small actions repeated daily become identity, and identity shapes destiny. You can't just talk your way into a new life, you have to behave your way there. It starts when you decide that excuses are no longer welcome, that you're done postponing the work, that 5 more minutes of sleep isn't worth 5 more years of regret. It starts when you wake up and choose power over patterns, when you stop reacting to life and start creating it, when your mornings stop being random and start being sacred. This isn't about hype. This isn't about pushing harder with no direction. This is about choosing one thing that matters and making it non-negotiable. It might be reading one page. It might be journaling for 10 minutes. It might be sitting in silence and listening to your thoughts without judgment. Whatever it is, it must be intentional. It must be yours, and it must be done before the noise of the world gets in. Because that's how the shift happens. That's how a scattered mind becomes focused. That's how self-doubt turns into self-respect. That's how drifting through life turns into designing it. You don't need to be great to begin, but you do need to begin to ever become great. You do need to interrupt the cycle. You do need to challenge the old version of you that keeps showing up with the same excuses. The life you want isn't built in the future. It's built right here, in this moment, by the choice you make next. And the real power? It's not just in doing something once. It's in proving to yourself, day after day, that you can show up. No matter how tired, no matter how distracted, no matter how far away the goal seems. Because every time you keep that promise to yourself, something inside you changes. Your self-image shifts, your belief grows, and suddenly, you don't just hope to become better. You start to expect it. That's how momentum is born. That's how direction is found, not in massive leaps, but in small, intentional steps, repeated with discipline. The turning point doesn't come with applause. It comes with silence, sweat, and a strong reason. And once you hit that moment, when you say enough is enough, when you finally stop negotiating with your limits, that's the moment everything begins to align. Not because the path gets easier, but because you get stronger, you get clearer, you become unstoppable, not all at once, but day by day, moment by moment. This is your turning point, right here, right now. And the next move you make will either take you deeper into the life you're stuck in, or one step closer to the life you were meant for. Every morning, there's a choice waiting for you. A silent moment before the world wakes up. A moment where you decide who you're going to be today. Not in theory, not in wishful thinking, but in real, intentional action. And whether you realize it or not, that decision shapes everything, not just how your day goes, but how your life unfolds. You decide whether you show up with strength, or settle for the same. You decide whether you start with purpose, or start with excuses. You decide whether to rise with discipline, or repeat with distraction. It's not fate, it's not chance, it's choice. Most people don't see it this way. They roll out of bed and walk straight into autopilot. They do what they've always done, not because it works, but because it's familiar, because it's easy, because it doesn't challenge them. But here's the reality. Comfort is the enemy of progress. And every time you choose comfort in the morning, you trade a piece of your future for a few more moments of ease. That trade adds up, one decision at a time. Until one day, you look around and realize you've built a life around avoidance, avoiding discomfort, avoiding effort, avoiding growth. But the people who rise, the ones who build powerful lives, they don't wait to feel ready. They don't wait for perfect motivation. They act. They decide, no matter what they feel, that their goals deserve to be served first, before notifications, before distractions, before anything else. Because the first thing you give your energy to owns you. Give it to your phone, it owns your focus. Give it to your doubts, they own your direction. Give it to your goals, and suddenly your life starts moving with intention. That's what the morning decision is really about. Ownership. Owning your time. Owning your energy. Owning your growth. And this is where many people get stuck. They think the decision needs to be grand. Something massive. Something perfect. But it doesn't. It just needs to be clear. Simple. Intentional. Maybe it's choosing to sit in silence for 5 minutes. Maybe it's moving your body, even when your bed begs you to stay. Maybe it's writing down your priorities instead of letting the day choose them for you. The decision itself doesn't need to be complicated. What matters is that you choose it, and you do it with full presence. Because here's the truth. When you ignore that morning decision, life chooses for you. And life doesn't care about your vision. It will fill your time with urgency, noise, and other people's demands. But when you choose with clarity, when you take control of that first hour, you don't just manage your day, you own it. This small act, repeated daily, builds a new identity. You're no longer the person who hopes for change. You become the person who creates it, not through force, but through consistency. And that builds confidence. Real confidence doesn't come from hype. It doesn't come from faking it. It comes from witnessing yourself keep promises, from waking up, choosing growth, and following through. Each time you make the morning decision to move forward, you prove to your mind that you are capable, that you can be trusted, that you are not your limits, you are your actions, and those actions compound. You won't feel the shift in one day, but you'll feel it in time. You'll notice you're more focused, more disciplined, more in control. Because what you water in the morning grows throughout the day. You'll start saying no to things that once controlled you. You'll stop chasing things that once distracted you, because now, your day doesn't own you, you own it. And all of that begins with one moment. That moment when your alarm goes off. That moment when the voice in your head says, "Stay comfortable, just 5 more minutes." And you answer back, "No, I've got things to build." That's the kind of power most people never discover. Not because they don't have it, but because they never make the decision to unlock it. You don't rise by accident. You rise on purpose. You rise because you decided to. And that decision isn't made once in a lifetime. It's made every morning. When your feet hit the floor, when your mind wants to wander, when your goals are still whispering in the quiet. That's where champions are built. That's where the future is shaped. Not by what happens to you, but by what you decide to do, before anything happens at all. So tomorrow, when the world is still asleep, you'll have a choice to make. And in that moment, remember this: your next level starts at the sound of your alarm. And what you decide to do next will define the rest of your day, and eventually, the rest of your life. Every great life begins with one simple habit. Not 100 tasks, not a long list of goals, just one non-negotiable action that becomes the anchor of your morning. This isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. One thing that grounds your mind, one thing that sharpens your focus, one thing that pulls you out of distraction and places you in full control. And no, it's not complicated. It's not something you need to learn. It's something you need to commit to. Gratitude. Every morning, without fail, sit with it. Not just think about it, feel it. Let your mind rest on one thing you're thankful for. It doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be real. Because here's what happens. When your first thoughts are grounded in appreciation, your brain starts the day with enough. And a mind that feels full doesn't chase chaos. It moves with clarity. It moves with purpose. Most people start their day looking at what they don't have, what they didn't do, what might go wrong. And from that mindset, everything feels like a problem. Every task feels heavier. Every challenge looks bigger than it really is. But when you begin with gratitude, you shift everything. You open your mind to what's possible. You stop fighting the day and start working with it. You become a creator, not a complainer. Science backs this up. Practicing gratitude in the morning boosts your mental strength. It lowers stress. It improves focus. It rewires your brain to notice the good before the bad. And that alone can change your entire direction. But here's the part most people miss. It only works if you do it with presence, not like a checklist, not like another task to rush through, but as a moment of truth with yourself. So tomorrow morning, before the world pulls you in 1,000 directions, take 1 minute. Sit still, close your eyes, and ask yourself, what am I deeply grateful for right now? Let the answer rise naturally. Don't force it, don't fake it. Even on your hardest days, there's always something, a lesson, a second chance, a breath. And if you feel resistance, that's the sign you need it even more. Because a mind that resists gratitude is usually one drowning in pressure, and pressure only loosens when we return to the basics, to stillness, to perspective. This one act will ground you. It will remind you that your value is not in your to-do list, that life is not a race, but a responsibility. And when you start from gratitude, you approach everything differently. You listen better. You respond instead of react. You stop needing everything to be perfect. And what's even more powerful? Gratitude builds discipline, because showing up for it every morning, even when you don't feel like it, teaches your mind that your emotions don't run the show. You do. That discipline spills into everything else. Work becomes more focused, decisions become clearer, relationships become more intentional, all from one quiet act of awareness. But this won't work if you treat it like a trend. It must become part of your identity, something you do not because you're told, but because you know the cost of skipping it. Miss it for 1 day, and your mind feels the difference. Miss it for a week, and you drift back into noise. That's how powerful it is. Because this isn't about just feeling good. It's about being grounded before life pulls you in every direction. You can't control how your day will go. You can't predict every challenge. But you can control how you meet the day. That's everything. So choose one thing to be grateful for, and give it your full attention. Write it down. Speak it out, feel it in your chest. Let it shape the rest of your thoughts, because the first thoughts of the morning, they are the seeds you plant into the soil of your day. And gratitude grows a different kind of life, one filled with intention, with peace, with strength that doesn't shake every time life does. You don't need to wake up and run. You don't need to attack your day with chaos. You need to start from center. And this is how. This is the one thing you must do. Not just once, not just when you feel good, but every morning, like breathing. Water. It's not about changing everything. It's about changing how you see what's already there. And when you do that, when you start from appreciation instead of anxiety, you become unstoppable. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger where it matters most, inside. Start with gratitude. End with progress. That's the path forward. All begins.
The world even opens its eyes.
The way you start your morning doesn't just affect your mindset, it literally rewires your brain. This isn't just a theory, this is proven, tested science. And once you understand how it works, you'll never treat your morning the same again. Inside your brain, there's a network called the Reticular Activating System, or RAS. This system filters information. It decides what your brain should focus on. It shows you what matters based on what you've been showing it. So when you begin your day with intention, when you give your attention to gratitude, focus, or a clear purpose, your RAS starts looking for more of that. More peace, more progress, more clarity. But if you start your morning with chaos, rushing, scrolling, worrying, your brain adapts to that too. It begins filtering for stress. It becomes more sensitive to negativity. It amplifies whatever you feed it first. That's not motivation talk. That's how the human brain operates. Your brain is a pattern machine. Whatever you repeat, it builds stronger. Every time you think the same thought or take the same action, you strengthen a neural pathway. Over time, that path becomes automatic. That's how habits are born. So when you wake up and choose to focus your energy, whether it's through stillness, journaling, or movement, your brain begins forming a new connection. It learns, this is what we do now, and with enough repetition, that new path becomes the default. This is called neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change based on experience. For years, people believed that the brain was fixed after a certain age. But that's not true. You're changing it every single day, consciously or unconsciously. That's why your morning matters so much. Because it's the first input your brain receives. It sets the tone, it sets the standard, and it sets the filter through which you experience everything else. There's another piece to this, dopamine. This is the brain's reward chemical. It gives you that feeling of motivation, focus, and momentum. But most people waste it. They get their first dopamine hit from something meaningless, like a phone notification or social media. It feels good for a second, then it crashes. That crash leads to distraction, fatigue, and mental fog, and it becomes harder to stay focused on anything real. But when you delay that hit, when you earn it through movement, learning, or deep focus, dopamine works in your favor. It becomes a tool, not a trap. It gives you energy that lasts. It helps you build discipline, not just chase pleasure. Even something as simple as writing down your goal or taking a few deep breaths in the morning can shift your dopamine system. Because the brain rewards what you repeat. And when your reward system is trained on progress, not cheap pleasure, everything changes. There's also your cortisol rhythm, your body's natural stress cycle. Cortisol is highest in the morning, and that's not a bad thing. It's your body's way of preparing you to face the day. But if you don't use that energy intentionally, it turns into anxiety. That's why you can wake up feeling overwhelmed before anything even happens. But when you move your body, breathe deeply, or focus on gratitude, you regulate that cortisol. You convert stress into strength. You don't remove the pressure. You rise above it. All of this happens inside you. Every single morning, whether you pay attention or not. And that's the difference between drifting and driving your life forward. There's also a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. This is the part responsible for decision-making, focus, and long-term planning. And guess when it's most active? Right after waking up. So if you spend those early minutes wisely, you activate your highest self. You train the brain to think, to lead, to choose what matters. But if you waste it, you weaken that muscle. You start relying more on impulse. You start reacting instead of creating. This isn't about being perfect. It's about understanding how your biology works and using it to your advantage. Because every time you align your actions with your intention, your brain learns to trust you more. It becomes easier to stay focused, easier to make strong decisions, easier to keep going when things get hard, and that's where real power comes from. Consistency built on clarity. You're not trying to fight your brain, you're learning how to lead it. When you wake up and take control of your first hour, you're doing more than starting your day well. You're giving your brain direction. You're setting up your emotional balance. You're telling your nervous system, I'm in charge here. That message gets carried into every conversation, every challenge, every opportunity. You become calm in chaos, focused in noise, unshakable in uncertainty, all because you stopped leaving your mornings to chance, and you started using what science already gave you, the power to rewire, to reset, and to rise. So tomorrow, when you wake up, remember, this isn't just another day. It's another chance to train your mind, to choose what you feed it, to build a brain that works for you, not against you, not through motivation but through biology, not through pressure but through purpose. Change your morning, and your brain will follow. And when your brain changes, so does your life. You don't need a perfect plan to change your life. You need proof. Proof that small actions lead to big shifts. Proof that ordinary people have turned struggle into strength. And that starts with real stories, not just theory. There are people walking this planet right now who once felt completely lost, overwhelmed, directionless, trapped in cycles they didn't know how to escape. But everything changed, not overnight, but gradually, because they decided to take ownership of their mornings. One man woke up every day feeling behind. He'd scroll through his phone, compare his life to others, and carry a heaviness that followed him all day. But one morning, he did something different. He left his phone in another room. He sat in silence. He asked himself, what do I want from today? Not in a vague, dreamy way, but clearly. That became his ritual. And within months, his confidence grew. He started showing up to work differently. He was calmer, more focused, more grounded. Nothing outside had changed. His job, his city, his situation were all the same. But he had changed, and that changed everything. There was a woman who couldn't stop doubting herself. She wanted to do more, but her mornings were filled with self-criticism. She'd wake up thinking about what she didn't do yesterday, or what might go wrong today. But someone told her to try writing down one win from the previous day, just one. She didn't believe it would help, but she tried. Day by day, that tiny shift rewired her focus. She started seeing her own growth. She stopped waiting for confidence to appear, and started building it through consistency. Her voice got stronger. Her energy changed. She didn't just dream about becoming better, she became better. These are not special people. They didn't have more time. They didn't have more resources. They had a choice, and they made it, one morning at a time. That's the power of transformation. It's not sudden, it's not loud. It's quiet, it's invisible at first, but it compounds, and the world begins to notice, even before you do. Someone wakes up and decides to walk instead of snooze. Someone else starts journaling instead of scrolling. Another chooses breath over panic, intention over autopilot. These tiny decisions create massive impact, not because they're flashy, but because they build identity. They tell the mind, this is who I am now. And the brain listens, the body follows, habits form, momentum builds. Success doesn't come from talent alone. It comes from alignment. When your thoughts, actions, and energy all move in the same direction, you become unstoppable. There was a young man struggling with addiction. Every day felt like a war inside his mind. He tried to fight the cravings by willpower alone, but it drained him. One day, he heard a phrase, you can't heal in the same environment that hurt you. So he changed how he woke up. He started the day with a cold shower, not just for discipline, but to break his own pattern. Then he wrote down 3 reasons to stay clean, every morning, and over time those reasons grew stronger than his excuses. Now he helps others do the same, not because he's perfect, but because he knows change is possible. This is what transformation looks like. Messy, real, slow at first, then suddenly everything shifts. It's not about achieving some perfect version of yourself. It's about returning to who you really are, without the noise, the fear, or the doubt clouding your vision. Every person you admire, every success story you hear, every breakthrough you dream of, it all started with a moment of decision. A morning that looked just like yours, but they chose to use it differently. They stopped reacting, they started creating, and now they live with more clarity, more peace, and more direction. This is available to you too, right now. Not when life calms down, not when things get easier, but now. Because real transformation begins when excuses end. It doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for commitment. Not to a system, but to yourself, to the version of you that's waiting underneath the fear, the one that's always been there. Strong, capable, worthy. If you've ever felt stuck, understand this. You're not broken. You're simply misaligned. Your habits are pulling you one way, but your spirit is pulling you another. That's why the morning matters so much. It's where alignment begins, where you reclaim control, where you return to your truth. You don't need to change your entire life in one day. You just need to decide that today you'll show up differently. That today you'll treat yourself like someone who matters, who has purpose, who deserves peace. And if you keep doing that day after day, life begins to rise to meet you. Not by magic, but by movement. Because real-world transformation isn't about changing everything. It's about changing yourself. One morning, one action, one choice at a time. Momentum is invisible, but it moves everything. It's what takes you from stuck to unstoppable, from hesitation to flow. And it doesn't start big. It starts small, so small that most people miss it. You don't feel momentum the moment you begin. You feel resistance, doubt, delay. But if you push through that first friction, if you move when your mind says wait, you activate something deep inside you. The brain starts recognizing a new pattern. The body responds. Energy builds. And before you even realize it, what felt hard becomes natural. That's momentum in motion. But here's the truth. Momentum can work both ways. When you skip your plans, when you break your own word, when you let one excuse become a habit, you build negative momentum, and it pulls you away from the life you want. Not all at once, but slowly, so slowly you barely notice until you feel completely disconnected from your potential. That's why the smallest actions matter, because they aren't just about results, they're about identity. When you say I'll start tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes, you teach your mind not to trust your voice, but when you say I'll do this now and follow through, you build inner strength that multiplies. People often wait for motivation to strike before they take action, but motivation is not the starting point. It's the result of action. It grows when you move. It builds when you keep promises to yourself. You take one step, then another, and with every step, belief grows stronger. That's how momentum becomes your ally. It starts carrying you forward. What once took effort now feels automatic, but it all begins with showing up, not once, not when it's easy, but consistently, especially when it's hard. There was a time when waking up early felt like a battle. Everything inside wanted comfort. The bed was warm, the world felt heavy, but one decision changed everything. Get up anyway. That one choice opened a door. Not to perfection, but to possibility. Because even when the body felt tired, the soul began to wake up. Not because of what was happening outside, but because of what was happening within. And here's something powerful. Your nervous system remembers patterns. It remembers what you repeat. So when you push through resistance, your future self becomes stronger. The more you win those small battles, the less they show up. Suddenly, things that once drained you now empower you. Tasks that once felt like pressure become your practice. You no longer wait for the right feeling. You create it through movement. Momentum also builds clarity. The faster you move with intention, the less space there is for overthinking. Action silences doubt. You don't need all the answers to begin. You just need to take the first step, then let momentum reveal the rest. You may not see progress immediately. You may wonder if it's working. But trust this, if you are moving with intention, results are already in motion. The seed is growing underground before it breaks the surface. Keep watering it. Even if your steps are small, even if you stumble, even if no one sees you. Your future is being built every time you choose discipline over comfort. And one day, you'll look back and realize the shift didn't come from one big breakthrough. It came from the 100 quiet mornings where you chose growth over ease, where you said yes to the life you wanted, even when it would have been easier to stay the same. That's how transformation happens. Not through one bold move, but through consistent steps taken when no one's watching. Your job is not to be perfect. Your job is to not stop. If you miss a day, begin again. If you fall short, stand back up. Momentum forgives mistakes. It rewards resilience. And every time you return to the path gets smoother. What felt forced begins to feel like flow. When you build momentum, you stop fighting your old self. You outgrow it. You no longer have to convince yourself to do the right thing. You become someone who does it naturally. That's the quiet power of daily action. It rewires not just your habits, but your self-image. You begin to see yourself as capable, as focused, as consistent. And when that belief is rooted deep, there is nothing you cannot build. Momentum becomes your shield. It protects you from the pull of your past. It lifts you out of hesitation. And it becomes the wind behind everything you do. So if it feels slow right now, keep going. If no one sees your progress yet, keep going. If your steps are shaky, but they're forward, keep going. Because every morning you rise and choose action, you are not just changing your day. You are changing your direction. You are stepping into a life that few ever touch. Not because you had all the answers, but because you kept moving forward when most would have stopped. And that's what makes the difference. That's how ordinary people create extraordinary lives. Not by waiting, by moving, by building, by never giving up on the power of momentum. You won't always feel like doing what needs to be done. There will be mornings when your energy is low, when the bed feels too warm, when your mind whispers all the reasons why today isn't the day. But those moments hold your greatest opportunity, because the choice you make when it's hard is the one that shapes your future. Discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about being loyal to the vision, even when the mood disappears. It's choosing action when comfort calls. It's doing what's right, not what's easy. And that's what separates those who grow from those who only wish. Feelings are temporary. They shift, they rise and fall like waves. But discipline is a decision, one that doesn't depend on how you feel. One that stands firm, even when emotions scream for escape. Most people live by their feelings. If they feel tired, they stop. If they feel unmotivated, they wait. If they feel doubt, they retreat. But those who build extraordinary lives reverse the pattern. They act first. Then let the feelings follow. There's a quiet power in doing the thing, even when every part of you resists it. Because every time you follow through in those moments, you build mental strength. You prove to yourself that you are not a slave to your emotions. You are the one in control. This is how confidence grows, not by feeling ready, but by doing what's hard and realizing you survived. You didn't shrink, you didn't quit. You stood up for your future, and that changes how you see yourself. Discipline is self-respect in action. It's showing your mind and body that you are worthy of the life you dream of. Not someday, but now. Think about it. If you only move when life feels easy, how often will you move? Not much. Because life rarely hands you perfect conditions. There's always noise, there's always pressure, there's always distraction. So you have to become the kind of person who shows up regardless, who says, I don't feel like it, but I'm doing it anyway. That's strength, that's power, that's freedom. Because once discipline becomes your default, everything changes. You no longer need to fight with yourself every day. You don't waste energy deciding whether to take action. You just move. And that movement becomes momentum. That momentum becomes progress. And that progress creates the life you've been chasing. But it all starts with mastering the small moments. When the alarm goes off and your mind says sleep. When your goals ask for effort and your body says later. When your growth requires sacrifice and your emotions say quit. Those moments are where your future is built. You don't rise by motivation. You rise by consistency. By showing up on the dark days. By training your mind to do what's needed, not what's comfortable. The truth is, the people you admire didn't get there because they always felt good. They got there because they acted anyway. They pushed when they were tired. They focused when it was noisy. They moved when others waited. They weren't superhuman. They were disciplined. And you can be too. Because discipline isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, through repetition, through choice, through grit. Every time you do the hard thing, you're not just checking a box. You're creating a pattern of strength, a pattern of integrity, a pattern of growth. That's how the future is formed, not in some big moment of inspiration, but in the small, unseen decisions repeated daily. Wake up early when you'd rather sleep. Move your body when it feels heavy. Speak kindly to yourself when your mind is full of fear. Do the work when it feels boring. Keep going when no one claps. That's the path. That's the process. That's what builds a version of you who doesn't wait to feel ready. Because here's the secret. The more you act against resistance, the weaker resistance becomes. The less control your feelings have, the louder your discipline gets. And soon, you don't have to force it anymore, because it becomes who you are. And once it becomes your identity, the game changes. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop making excuses. You stop waiting for circumstances to align. You become the kind of person who moves regardless, who grows regardless, who wins because they no longer ask for permission. So when the doubt comes, move. When the fear speaks, move. When the feeling says not today, move anyway. Because that's how you take your power back. That's how you rise above your own limits. That's how you become unshakable. Discipline is a decision, one that changes everything. And once you make it daily, life bends in your favor. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. Because at the end of the day, your life will be shaped not by how you felt, but by what you did. You don't have to wait for a perfect day to start living with purpose. You don't need to have everything figured out before you move. You don't need approval. You don't need the stars to align. You just need to decide. Decide that from today, you're done being a prisoner of the past. You're done waiting for motivation to show up. You're done hoping life will change on its own. Because deep down you already know, nothing will shift until you shift. Nothing will move unless you move. This is the truth that most avoid. They keep thinking that a better day will magically appear, that one morning they'll wake up with no fear, no doubt, no hesitation. But that moment never arrives. Because it doesn't come to those who wait, it comes to those who decide. It doesn't matter how far you've fallen. It doesn't matter how many times you've failed. It doesn't matter how loud your fear is. What matters is what you do now. Right now is your doorway. Right now is your turning point. Right now is your chance to step into a new standard. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now. Every great life begins with that moment of truth. A moment when someone looks in the mirror and says, I'm done living small. I'm done living scared. I'm done wasting time. That decision is what lights the fire. That choice is what builds the foundation. Everything you're chasing begins with a firm, silent promise to yourself. I will no longer abandon my future for the comfort of the present. You don't rise by accident. You rise on purpose, with consistency, with action, with faith that grows stronger than your excuses. The person you want to become is not found in some distant future. They're already inside you, buried beneath the noise, hidden under layers of doubt, waiting for you to wake them up. And that happens when you stop talking and start doing, when you stop wishing and start building, when you stop fearing and start showing up. Even if your hands shake, even if your voice trembles, even if the world doesn't clap, you move, you build. You stay loyal to the version of you that you know you're capable of becoming. Because no one is coming to save you. No one is going to push you every day. No one will believe in you more than you believe in yourself. This is your responsibility. This is your power. And if you ever feel too far behind, remind yourself. Some of the most powerful transformations began in silence, in private, in a quiet room, with a person who simply said, I'm ready now. So if you've been doubting yourself, if you've been stuck in the same habits, if you've been shrinking around your potential, now is the time to stand. Stand for the life you want. Stand for the discipline you've built. Stand for the version of you that refused to quit, despite everything. Because the truth is, change doesn't start with doing more. It starts with becoming more. Becoming focused, becoming intentional, becoming the kind of person who doesn't let their old story define their new chapter. And yes, there will be resistance. Yes, there will be fear. Yes, there will be days where it feels like nothing's working. But you keep going anyway. Because that's what people do when they finally understand their worth. They stop negotiating with weakness. They stop justifying delay. They stop choosing average. And they choose themselves, fully, completely, without apology. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need the courage to begin. And once you begin, momentum takes over. You take one step, then another, and slowly, you build a life that looks nothing like the one you're trying to leave behind. No more waiting. No more hoping someone will do it for you. No more hiding behind fear. This is your time. This is your day. This is your life, and you only get one. So wake up with intention. Start your mornings with purpose. Carry yourself like the person you want to become. Not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. Because greatness is born in the ordinary moments you choose not to waste. Power is built in the quiet hours no one sees. And success? It's just the result of doing what others don't feel like doing, consistently. You have everything you need. You always have. Now it's time to act like it. The version of you that's been waiting to rise is ready. All it needs is for you to decide. So decide now. Decide deeply. And never look back. Because the life you want isn't waiting for anyone. It's waiting for you.